So, part of the reason why I have chosen this profession and specifically working from home is so I could be left alone. And today I want to discuss that with you guys.
You in the past, I'm in the future. You mad that they don't salute you. I need a
Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Keela Trishawn and I make videos on lifestyle, insurance, and mental health. I also do vlogs, day in the life in the insurance industry, day in the life of the toddler, all the things. So if that's something that interests you, go on ahead and click that subscribe button below. Be sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back and thank you for your support. Okay, so as you know, if you've been watching my channel, the last several months I've been training like newer employees. And the common theme that I've seen, because the employees that I've trained have come from like other insurance carriers and they're just kind of learning how to do things like our way. But one of the things that I see is there are like some practical skills that not that they don't possess, but that they don't follow, I guess. So I'm always asked like kind of how do I like how do I keep the higher ups and like just managers and stuff off of my back and still get to kind of do what I want to do and have the freedom and stuff without being micromanaged. And it's really just like a few practical tips, honestly. Like when I think about it, there are not anything like I don't have anything special that I do. I just basically provide them with what they need so they can leave me alone, because part of the reason why I took this job is because I wanted to be left alone. As a field adjuster, I'm able to go out into the public and I can deal with people, but I can also come back home and not have to deal with anybody. So in order for me to have that freedom, not have to deal with managers questioning me and stuff like that, is to basically follow their instructions and make it work into my routine. So I've got some practical tips that I put together, basically the things that I do to just not only make me successful, but also it allows me to make the most of like working from home, having the freedom to do what I need to do in my free time while also staying on top of my job. So if you are struggling in this area, if you're a new adjuster, if you are just curious, definitely go on ahead and stay tuned. Okay, so my first tip is to follow the guidelines you're given. Now it sounds easy enough, but you'd be surprised how many times I see adjusters just kind of doing their own thing and then wondering why their managers or people are talking shit about their files. So there are different guidelines for each insurance company, and you kind of have to just tailor what you do to make sure that you include everything that's needed for the insurance company that you're working for. I'll say, for example, like file documentation. There are some companies that want more detail. There are some companies that want less detail. Some companies have templates that they want you to use. Some companies expect you to like create your own templates, but then just include pertinent information, whatever. The biggest thing that I found that like makes me successful is I include everything that that they are looking for. So for this particular company, when we are like getting a new claim and we have to do the initial investigation, they want to see documented that we took a look at the loss history. They want to see it documented that we confirmed their mortgage company. They want to see it documented that we confirmed the contact information for the customer, things like that. So I don't half-ass those things. I make sure in my template I have all these things addressed, and I do it the same every time. So there's never a reason for anyone to question me or to think that I am not doing something properly. What I've seen sometimes is, adjusters will be like, oh, well, it's easier for me to do this, it's easier for me to do that. And that's fine, but at the end of the day, you are working for a company. It's not your own business. So although I don't agree with all of the like guidelines and routines that like every insurance company has, I've definitely spoke about that before. And honestly, that would be its own separate video. But I do understand that I'm working for a company. It's not my company. And so if you want me to do something a certain way, I'm going to make my routine work to where I'm including what you need from me. That right there just ensures that when somebody looks at my file, they can say, okay, she hit all of these things, no issues there, let's move on to the next. One thing I can say is when you kind of deviate from routines, if your file gets audited, it will cause the auditor sometimes to look deeper into your files to kind of find errors. And that's what you don't want. So you want to make sure that you have a consistent routine with everything that you do, documenting files, investigating claims, all of that. So no one can ever question you and no one can ever say that you didn't follow, guidelines or whatever. So make sure that you're following what that particular insurance company wants you to do on all of your files. Okay, so my second tip is to pay attention to the feedback that you're giving. So, whether that be from your immediate supervisor, somebody over your immediate supervisor, pay attention to the feedback. Now, it's always tough, even for me, it's tough to hear negative feedback, but at the same time, the feedback is meant to help you get better. I'd much rather you come to me and tell me that I'm doing something wrong so I can fix it in the future than for you to ding me on a review or, I get, like written up or something about it. So listen to the feedback that you're given. Now, what I will say, if you feel like you're in a situation where you're being disrespected or somebody is being super disrespectful, that's a whole other situation, probably an HR issue. But just like thinking about, performance on a regular, your managers and higher ups are going to come to you pretty regularly with like different feedback. Or if they see something that's consistently happening in a file, like something that you're consistently forgetting, they're going to come and talk to you about it. I'll go ahead and share one of mine. So when I'm writing estimates, and this is going to be for most insurance companies in the state of California, I don't know if it's the same for everywhere else, but I assume. But we are required to put a note on our estimates about depreciation. Like you kind of like note like how much depreciation you're taking based on the age of the materials, that kind of thing. You're required to put a note just saying like, took X amount of depreciation, average condition, whatever. For like the first, I would say like month or two, I was consistently forgetting that. So although I was doing well, I was forgetting that. And that's actually a Department of Insurance issue. Like if the file gets audited and that information is not on the estimate, that's something that the insurance company could get dinged for. So I did get talked to about that. Like, hey, make sure that you're paying attention to this. This is not something that we can let slide. This is like one of those non-negotiables. So I listened to the feedback and I made sure that moving forward, I was very diligent. Like I did not send off an estimate for approval. I didn't send an estimate to an insured without having that information there. I did have to set up a process where I kind of like reminded myself. I had kind of like a checklist of things that I needed to review before I finalized an estimate, but now it's like second nature. So it was something where I could have taken it personal, like, what you mean? But it was literally something that I was messing up on that I needed to fix. And I'm glad that my manager came to me in a nice way and said, hey, this is something that you need to work on because you don't want to, you don't want it to become an issue down the line. And it's better coming from him than it is coming from the Department of Insurance. So yeah, just pay attention to the feedback. And if you're getting like consistent coaching about like a particular issue, you want to make sure that you are, creating routines and figuring out a way to not have that same feedback in the future. You want to fix whatever it is you're being talked to about. Okay, so my third tip is to keep your activities up to date. Now, there are different systems within different insurance companies, but for the most part, there's usually like a universal system where you like plan your activities. So for example, I might have something that says follow up on plumbing report, and I might have it set for like Monday's date. If I'm not able to get to that Monday, instead of me leaving it on my desktop and allowing it to go red, which means it's an overdue activity and it's something I didn't touch, I'm going to move it out to a day when I can address it. But you want to make sure that you are actively working your files. One thing that I see that trips up a lot of adjusters, and this is something that's tracked and it's something that you can get talked to about, and people can start micromanaging you if you're not properly taking care of your desk. What will happen is adjusters will let their desk get out of control. So once that happens, once you have like several pages of activities, it's just not humanly possible for you to get to all those activities in a day. And then a lot of times those anything page 2 and after, you're not going to be able to get to, and it could be something really important on there. There could be like time restraints and things like that you're forgetting about because you're not on top of your files. So I make it a habit every day before I leave the office, I clear my desktop. So there are times where I'm just simply not able to get to something. Maybe it's something that I thought I was going to have the information that I needed and I don't have it yet, so I can't complete that task. Or maybe it's just something that, I got back in late from my inspections and, the day's over. So I'm going to go on ahead and just push this to tomorrow or to a couple days from now. You want to make sure that you don't have any red activities on your desktop. You want to make sure you move those out. Now, there are going to be times too where like somebody else might assign you something and they may assign it to you today, but you're already logged out. So by the time you come in tomorrow, it's now red. That's fine. Those things are going to happen. But as long as you stay on top of those things and you're moving things out to the proper dates and just making sure that you're actually touching it, then you won't end up on that side of things. The last thing you want to do is have a desktop full of red activities because it just sends the message that you are not organized and that you're not on top of your files. Number 4, be very mindful of what you put in writing to your customers. So the reason why I say this is because it's one thing if you make a verbal mistake, but when you put something in writing, a lot of times it's hard to kind of go back on that. Like if you mess up an amount, if you mess up a coverage decision, things like that. These are things that are kind of not as hard or not as easy to rectify, especially if you have a customer that is going to, fight for it. I've seen situations where like an employee sent the wrong estimate amount for, this was like back in auto, but they sent the wrong estimate amount to someone that had like I guess a more economy style car. They sent the information for like a luxury vehicle, and they sent the wrong paperwork, and that customer now made a big fuss like, oh well, this is what you said I was getting, so this is what I planned on getting so I could get another vehicle. So it just became a huge mess. So you want to be very careful what you're sending people. If you're not sure about something, do not put it in writing. Do not be afraid to say, hey, I need to do some research on this. I need to find the answer first. I want to make sure that I'm giving you a definitive answer before you put that in writing, because I've also had customers like that want you to put things in writing so they have like a leg to stand on. So don't get caught up like that. Also, besides like putting things that like may not necessarily be true or may not necessarily be in policy in a file, you also want to be cognizant of like your verbiage. There are some customers that can be complete a-holes, and they might come at you foul or whatever. Whatever you do not fight back in an email or any type of like written like document, whether that be text or anything. You don't want to put those things in writing because it can be used against you. So you don't want to be going toe to toe with a customer and saying something that could potentially get you fired or reprimanded. So just be careful about what you're doing. If you do need to have a tough conversation and this person is, not verbally, but this person is like abusing you, I guess, through words on a document or email, I would say go on ahead and have a phone call with that person, kind of, discuss whatever you need to discuss, but just really be careful about what you're putting in writing. Leave your emotions out of it and leave things that you are not sure about out of any type of writings to customers. Okay, so my last and final tip for this video is I'm just looking down at my little notes. Don't let a call go to voicemail twice, and make sure that you answer emails within a day. So this is just my personal preference, just because I feel like the quicker you get on top of things, the better. The last thing you want is a customer that thinks that you are not communicating with them or that you're ignoring them, because that is a really easy way to lose trust. And it's an easy way for a customer that would normally be, cool and pleasant to deal with to turn not cool and pleasant to deal with. So my rule of thumb is I typically will not answer my phone while I'm at an inspection. I make sure the customers know that. I tell them that like kind of as I'm talking to them in person, and then like when I'm leaving. If you need something and you call me and I don't answer, I'm either away from my phone or I'm at an inspection. I'll call you back as soon as I'm able. So I make sure that I do return my calls before I leave the office for the day. If it's like a call that I get, close to when I'm gonna get off or even after hours, obviously I'm gonna call them the next day. So I make sure that I stay on top of those things and I set that precedent so customers know I am not ignoring you. And if you've called me and I haven't called you back within a day, I am likely on vacation. And it'll say that on my voicemail. Same thing with emails. Like when someone sends me an email, even if I can't address it right then and there, as soon as I'm able to within that day, I will let them know, hey, I received A, B, and C. I'll be able to address it by this date. Just make sure that you keep in touch with people, because they are going through a claim, and one of the issues with the insurance company is people feel like we're not responsive. So I try to just kind of show people the opposite, because that also saves time in the long run. Like you don't have this person or reaching out to your manager, so then now your manager's reaching out to you and you're having to explain why you haven't called this person back. You are able to kind of just like stay on top of things before it turns into an issue, and you have better overall customer service. So just something to think about. Like if you're somebody that has trouble returning calls, I would suggest setting aside time before you like clock out for the day to make sure that you return any calls that you got that you weren't able to. Go through your emails, make sure that you've addressed everything before you log out for the day. Like I said, you don't have to solve every problem, but you just need to communicate what's going on and make sure that the customer knows that you hear them and that you have, received whatever correspondence that they sent you. All right, you guys, so that is all that I have for you today. I just really want to make this video because I feel like the struggles that I see with adjusters a lot of times are things that could be fixed quickly. The last thing you want to do is get on your manager's bad side because they think that you're not trying, or just get into a position that you can't get out of. As an adjuster, when you get behind, it is really hard to get yourself out of that hole. I've been there. If you watch my vlogs, I've been there more than once. So I definitely try to put like plans in place to where I don't get behind. There are going to be times where these things don't always work, but it'll at least set you up for success. I think if you do, and it's basically just staying on top of your work, doing things the way the company expects you to do it, and keeping your customers happy. Pretty much my goal throughout most days is to make sure that things do not escalate to my manager, because then once your manager gets involved, a lot of times all bets are off. Now they're telling you what you need to be doing as opposed to you just working your claim how you would normally work your claim. So if there are any adjusters watching and you have any tips and tricks for things that you do to keep your desk from blowing up and to keep managers out of your files, definitely go on ahead and leave that information below. I love to chat in the comments. I respond to every comment, as long as you're not saying anything crazy. I think I said that before. As long as you're not saying anything crazy, I'll respond. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you have not already subscribed and you made it this far, please go on ahead and click that subscribe button below. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. And with that being said, you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you next time.
You mad that they don't salute you. I need a bag, size is super. They turned your bag, it's like I never knew you. Leader.